Welcome to the Tuesday Review. I'm Nathan, as always, joined by Callum and James in the studio. How you going, guys?
Good.
We're joined by Darcy Yuille, filmmaker.
It's David.
David Yuille.
Sorry. You're never going to live that down.
You can edit that
I'm never
out
going to
now.
live it down.
Yeah.
That's all right. It happens. Filmmaker of One Punch.
Yes, go see One Punch when it
yeah.
comes out. The show times will be linked in our social media.
Yes.
But since we just finished our discussion with Darcy about his
interview.
movie, and we figured while we've got him captive here in the studio, we'll talk movies and stuff.
Yeah.
Because that's what we like to do.
It's also fascinating to pick the brain of a director.
Yes.
Mm.
And while the mics were off, Darcy asked me, well, what's your favourite movie? And I said, hang on, Darcy, let's save this for the show.
That's like an hour of conversation.
Yeah, because it's like, once you get me started, I won't stop.
Yeah.
And this is the kind of gold we want to record for our listeners. So if listeners have heard the 100th episode, we all Callum, Nathan and I talk about our favourite movies.
I can't even remember what I said, to be honest. I'll see if I still have the notes.
Oh, you said Groundhog Day, which is a really interesting choice.
Great film.
Also up there, yeah.
Yeah, it's a great movie. But yeah, I because like all film lovers, you can't pick one. Like there's too many.
Yeah.
On the 100th episode, I was talking about how I started to try to think, well, what is my favorite movie? And I started making a list, and I got to 200 films before I had a panic attack and had to stop. But I've always said, if I had a gun to my head and someone said, pick a movie now, what's your favorite? I would say Apocalypse Now.
Yeah.
Because I think it's the most incredible thing I've ever seen, and I don't think in a million years we'll ever see anything else like it.
Singularly unique.
And not the Redux version, right?
No, specifically the Redux
Really?
version.
Oh.
I am an outlier in the fact that I like that version more than the theatrical or the new Final Cut version.
Yeah.
Because to me, I'm like, just the more the better.
Yeah.
I also like the Redux.
Yeah, the longer, the crazier.
Yeah.
Like, because it's like watching that movie is hypnotic.
Yeah.
Like, you feel like you're going insane, which is the whole point of the movie. And I feel like, the more craziness there is,
The Redux
better.
feels closer to the book.
Heart of Darkness.
that journey, that long journey through
And the encounter with the French and the whole
through what I call it's a time travel movie.
Yeah.
Like, he's slowly going back through time, and if you start taking those pieces out, you lose a big part of what I think is so great about the movie. It's like he's slowly going, one, a descent into madness, and two, a journey through time. I think it's just the most incredible thing ever. And like, in 100 years, we'll see another Godfather, we'll see another Casablanca, we'll see another Wizard of Oz, we'll see another Ben-Hur. But I don't think we'll see anything like Apocalypse Now ever again. Like, no one will ever have the balls to do it. No one will ever fund it. No one will be able to do it practically.
It was dangerous when it was made, and it's still dangerous today. Yeah.
And the behind the scenes is crazier than the actual movie itself.
Yeah.
And so...
What's your favourite movie?
Yeah, so
Darcy?
that is...
We'll have to cut James off at some point.
That is to say, the reason I said is that is to say, well, now it's your turn.
So, look, I do think that my favourite film is it's a mixture between Seven Samurai or Yojimbo. It's one or the other, because for me, they were the films that really, 10 years old,
Formative memories.
formative
And
memories of-
Seven Samurai is that classic kind of heroes and...
Yeah.
It's like, it's called, I've heard it called like the original action movie, which calling that now is like, no, it's not. But you can see it. It's like got all the tropes of what would later become...
Yeah, it's just like, I remember as a 10-year-old watching it going, I love this film. And then as an adult watching it again, going, I really love this film, because I think it's really a film of its time as well, in terms of talking about, post World War II. There's all these people who are like, what the fuck did we just do?
Yeah.
We just supported this regime to go and do these things. How can we look at ourselves in the mirror? And what Kurosawa was doing, I think, was trying to make a film that did both, helped the Japanese people look at them in the mirror with pride, but also said it doesn't come without responsibility. And it's just like every performance. Like, there's a guy in that that's just like Lee Marvin. It's an amazing film, and Mifune's amazing in it too. So.
Well, Yojimbo's the only Kurosawa film that I've actually seen. But I remember talking to James about it.
I said
the use of the black and white camera, even to I'm a big fan of black and white film when it's done correctly, because the framing you can get with it is so great. It's like one of the reasons I love Tarkovsky so much. Yeah. With Ivan's Childhood, incredible framing techniques. There's just something about black and white.
Yeah. But you're speaking my language because Kurosawa is probably my favorite director, and I said to Callum, I said, you need to see Seven Samurai so then we can talk about it properly, because it's the most incredible movie.
The way he moves the camera, like there's no Scorsese without Kurosawa. So everything that Scorsese does with moving the camera on tracks and following action, directly from that.
Without Kurosawa, there's no George Lucas, there's no Scorsese,
Star Wars,
there's probably no Spielberg.
There's no Leone,
Exactly. So even there's the old story of Kurosawa was influenced by John Ford, and then John Ford was influenced by Kurosawa afterwards, and like Westerns changed because Leone took Yojimbo and remade it.
Fistful of dollars,
and Seven Samurai got remade as Magnificent Seven, and so Kurosawa's influence on not just movies but pop culture is.
Yeah, the most important part is if it never happened, we wouldn't have A Million Ways to Die in the West.
Yeah. Well,
that's the most important one.
Sometimes you got to watch crap, to enjoy it.
Now you're speaking my language.
Yeah. But would you have Once Upon a Time in the West without Kurosawa?
No,
I don't know that Leone would have made a film like that without
definitely
making, all the other films. So it's. But just for himself, like Rashomon, it's a film that's just completely.
It's entered the public
defining,
lexicon as it's a Rashomon, the way he told that story, and not even talking about how good the film looks and all that. It's entered. Yeah, it's a different stage of.
Is that the one where the story's told through different perspectives?
Yeah.
I was reading about that there was an article about that the other day.
Yeah, so it's still people still are like, hey, this Kurosawa guy is pretty good, right?
Yeah, all the time.
I think one of my favorites. Have you seen Kagemusha?
No,
one of his later ones.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, that's one of his later color films. That film blew me away. Yeah. I'm like, I don't know. And there was a certain point. And then he did Ran. Yeah. And then he kept making movies into his 90s.
I haven't seen Dreams either, but yeah.
Yeah, Dreams was even later. Yeah. And he was going blind, I think. He was in his 90s, was going blind, and he was still making some of the most incredible movies I've ever seen.
Oh my God, I did a really bad thing. I actually didn't tell you my favourite film.
Wait, you said so?
Because my favourite film is actually Ikiru. It's not The Seven Samurai, which is I did a bad thing. I did a U, but Akira was this film about a guy, it's basically Scrooged or, Dickens' A Christmas Carol. But I just don't know why. The film just gets me in the pancreas every time.
We are kindred spirits, I believe, because I saw that movie a few years ago, maybe a couple of years ago for the first time. And, I was already a huge Kurosawa fan and had seen most of his other movies. But it's such a beautiful, quiet, contemplative movie. Yeah, and I can understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, I think it hit me at a point in life where it just made me realise I know this sounds weird, other people have feelings too, So
it's the empathy thing, yeah. It's funny the way art affects you at different stages of your life. It's I was trying to explain the song Father and Son to a friend of the show, Julian.
Yep.
Because by Cat Stevens.
Not Ugly Kid Joe version, no.
No, they played it at my work all the time, and it drives me crazy. But anyway, I was explaining to him how it's when you're a young man, you're listening to the song, and it's about a son who wants to get away, do his own thing. But then when you're a bit older, it's the father's perspective about the rebellious son and all that. And the art affects you so much differently.
Yeah.
It's interesting too, because when we were talking about your film One Punch, and we were talking about empathy and like seeing different perspectives and how people view different things. It's a perfect example of like art as an tool to teach empathy and to promote
patience.
Just like promote empathy. I think it's amazing. Like I used to joke, like I learned more from The Simpsons than I did at school. And I said it as a joke, but the older I got, the more I thought about it. And I was like, one of the reasons I love movies and all I love to do is watch TV and movies is because like you enter into this world and you kind of live with these characters. Yeah. And even though they're not real, it's like you kind of get a sense of like what other people's story might be.
Well, it's what church used to be, I reckon. It's like you go into a dark space, and without the dogma of, and I'm sorry for anyone who's particularly religious, but without the dogma of like you have to do this and don't do that, and you're allowed to commune with other people.
The communal experience it's similar, the cinema going experience. You sit in a dark room with other people, and even though you're not talking to them, it's a shared experience.
Yeah, you're all experiencing it at the same time.
Also don't like to be preached at, right? But if you present a message or a lesson in a way where people don't know necessarily that they're getting taught that lesson, it's more effective.
Yeah,
well, there is that old that I guess it's an ironic maxim, the idea that TV is the nanny, what is it?
The opiate of the masses.
Yeah, but it's like you let your kids watch TV and then you just go out and do what you want. It's like the idea that they'll just sit in front of the TV.
Oh, it's a babysitter.
But making them watch The Simpsons is so subversive, and it's.
But it's interesting because The Simpsons. That's the other thing. The Simpsons actually does have a lot of ethical lessons in it.
Oh, especially the earlier seasons. It's
there was always a message somewhere.
Yeah.
I started rewatching it last year, and it starts really dark too. Like the first episode, Homer's contemplating suicide in the very first episode of the show, and I'm like, wow, I don't remember it being this dark as a kid.
Very Frank Capra, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Middle America, and I saw a meme today. I think it was like this was Homer Simpson's house that he was able to afford as an uneducated nuclear technician. In 1990 or whatever, and
well, it's like I used to I was thinking about Roseanne the other day, and it's like the whole point of that show was how dirt poor they were, and yet you look at that house and I would love to live in that house.
Every American show we grew up on watching, they've got these massive houses, and you just thought, well, that's normal. There must be something wrong with me. I don't live in that, but I guess that was their plan, was to say.
That's the thing, we've just been talking about like how you can watch TVs and movie and learn a lot and learn empathy, but there is also have to be careful of that element of, well, it is make believe, and people
it normalizes things.
People begin to believe, well, oh, that's how things are supposed to be. It's like, well, no, it's all made up.
To slightly pivot, this was something I forgot about. I just remembered. It's not quite a joke question, but it's something we were talking about before we saw the film. Were you aware of One Punch Man?
Yes.
Before you titled the film?
Yes. We have
every time you Google the movie.
We have lists of titles that we tried. There were things like Spud. Because at one stage someone says he's a spud, he doesn't know what he's doing. But it was the best title because no one's made a film called One Punch. It's not on IMDb
That's
at all.
surprising,
Yeah, which is surprising. And then there's One Punch Man, but it's very much that anime kind of genre. So, and so I guess
you're not competing,
but it'll also benefit from I think, if people do search that, they'll accidentally find it. Because, I think now when you search One Punch, it does come up first, but then One Punch Man is every 90 searches underneath it. So, but I was aware of it, but, we had so many titles, but they were so bad, all the other ones, it was like Matt's Question and stupid things.
Well, we said King Hit. could be one.
Yeah.
But again,
like,
that maybe glorifies.
It's almost glorified.
Well, that definitely was an issue. There was Coward Punch, but someone had made a short film.
Yeah, it doesn't have the same
King
ring
Coward.
to it.
Yeah.
Could have gone all hipster and just called it something like Trauma, full stop.
Yeah.
That's it. I mean, there's probably 100 movies called Trauma.
That's also true.
Coburg Dreaming. Like maybe the next romantic one.
We were talking before the show and briefly, I guess, during the last episode about you've been watching Nathan Fielder's The Rehearsal.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
We had opinions.
Yeah, I've been listening.
So tell us what you think about this this rabbit hole of madness.
This monstrosity of
I
television.
think it's very, very funny. And so, like I said to you, I watched the first episode, I went away, came back and watched it again with my wife, and then we watched the whole series. So
all in one sitting?
yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, because that
would
best
do-
way to
Actually, no, we watched it all the way to the episode 5, and then episode 6
Then
we
you
watched
needed a
last
break,
night.
yeah.
Yeah.
An interesting question, as I guess a filmmaker who, I guess, made his movie with a mixture of scripts and guerrilla kind of filming. Like, what is your opinion on how much of it is scripted versus how much of it is Nathan Fielder just kind of causing chaos? And
I think everyone signs up for, like, actors. Actors want to do this kind of thing. They would find it so fascinating and exciting. So if you're an actor, you're signing up to do that. I think they'd all be fantastically happy with the process. I think that it's a comedy, right? Like I can't see it as. Once I started seeing it as a comedy, I laughed. Like someone said, you'd heard someone, was it Callum?
it's
laugh
referred,
loudest?
Yeah.
It's referred to as the internet as a docu-series, which I find funny.
Yeah.
But I mean, I watch. I've got a 14-year-old. She's watching Glow Up, which is the Netflix show about makeup artists, and I laugh just as loudly as that. But they're being serious. So I think that what he's really doing, and that's why I think it makes sense to call it a post-reality show, is that he's really looking at reality TV and going, well,
deconstructing.
Yeah,
it.
this is how they put it together and make it, and also he's being funny. Like it's.
You don't
just,
think it's like sinister at all? There's
There's undertones written into it.
We joked that the more you watch, the closer it gets to being a thriller.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, maybe that's the second season. Maybe that's he's on the run across the wearing a nappy and driving.
But I will say though,
the
the minute in the final episode where you see him in the wig and he looks, I was like, I'm done.
You lost it.
Well, the minute the very last moment when the
Have you
boy
got
calls
enough?
him daddy, I love you, daddy, and he's like, I love you, mummy, and he says, I'm daddy.
Yeah.
And then it's like,
And then you see
what was
his
that
crack.
about? I don't know. And then you see his butt crack, and it's
That's
like,
the final
okay,
shot of
well,
it.
that's what. Yeah. I had to laugh at that. I think it's genius. I don't know if enough people have seen it yet.
He should win an Emmy.
yeah.
He got stiffed out of Finding Frances. He has to win this time.
I think Nathan Fielder's problem is that he's not. He's very dry.
Yeah.
The
And
driest, yeah.
He's not Sacha Baron Cohen. He's not going to put on the costumes and be Borat or and if he's not going to be a character. He's not going to be Bruno.
Yeah. He's close in the acting one where he puts the blonde wig on.
Yeah, but it's like kind of he likes to blend in and sort of.
He's like he's very low key.
If you're watching those last episodes though, and you're seeing the older actor be the boy, and then outside vaping.
Oh,
that was so funny.
And you go, this is crazy. You got to I think realize. And even if it's not, it probably helps your brain.
We talked. I think we mentioned it on the rehearsal review we did, but I think we talked about it even more off air. And we were like, how Nathan Fielder, he might be a sociopath or something, but he's self-aware enough to use his power, his evil
For good.
powers for good.
I read funny. I've probably talked about it already, but I read funny comments on the internet. But he's like, it's like I'm not sure if he needs to win the awards or go to jail.
Yeah.
It's like I'm not sure which.
Yeah,
I was listening to you guys talk about it before, and this is very meta in the form of Nathan Fielder, but the getting in the car with a kid and going, did you get enough from that?
Yeah.
That is like, I would be doing rehearsals with my actors, and like I said, we went out to Billboards, the nightclub in the city, and they were drinking vodka Red Bulls and trying to pick up chicks and stuff. And then at the end, you'd go, okay, how was that? Did you get enough from that? And it's like this kind of weird switch that that actors do. It's weird with kids though, because kids do generally not understand
Yeah,
necessarily.
they can't separate.
Yeah.
Especially when you're dealing
and-
with a kid as young as
we
6.
Yeah.
I don't, if,
Remy was just,
Yeah.
We might have mentioned that there might have been, I don't, because we don't know how much was faked. There should have been child psychologists available and on set.
They probably did have them.
Debrief, if you will.
The funniest part was watching. So I'd watched the first episode with Lisa, and then we went to watch the second episode. And the opening of that is pulling the kid out of the bedroom, and she's like, "Oh no, they're doing this to prank the mother." Like she was terrified that this thing was going to happen where he was going to prank the mother, and she'd come in and find the kid missing and go crazy. But then she went from, "Oh my god, this is terrible! Like I can't watch this, to then, oh my god, this is crazy."
Yeah. I definitely think not enough people know about the show though.
Even with Nathan For You, it's like he's
because he's a recluse kind of.
Yeah, but like in America, like he's not super well known, but I feel like
he's more well known behind the scenes.
He's more well known, but here I think like not a lot of people have seen his stuff. And that's also an availability issue, which we talk about a lot on the show.
Nathan For You aired like once on Comedy Central and Foxtel back when it was airing, like just generally, and it's never really been seen since.
Yeah, exactly.
You can get it on streaming, but you have to know what to look for.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't come up in the algorithm.
No.
Yeah.
I just thought that was interesting.
Watched Barry at all?
Yes.
No.
A little bit. I haven't seen it all. A little bit.
I heard the finale was spectacular.
Yeah, it's pretty great.
God, I can't remember it now. What was the finale?
Well, I don't want to spoil it.
Oh, I do remember. I do remember. Sorry, yeah. No, I love that show as well. I think it's a really clever show. And
have you seen talking about acting shows? The Kavinsky method. Is that what it is?
Yeah, I started to
Kaminsky.
Yeah,
Kaminsky.
I haven't seen it. Yeah,
I started watching it. Yeah, it was all right. I mean, Alan Arkin. Alan Arkin. Yeah, he's amazing in it. But I think he leaves after the first season, and then I sort of stopped watching it. But definitely enjoyed that.
I'm really sorry to bring the mood down, but we asked what your favourite show is. What can't you stand?
What can't I stand?
What movie do you despise?
Well, I walked out of the card counter, so that was the last movie that I walked out of.
While you went in the studio, I'm sorry, I mentioned the fact that the only movie I walked out of was Killing Them Softly.
Yeah.
Which drives James crazy.
It irritated me.
Yeah, I said that Ben Mendelsohn was too much. I couldn't deal with it.
That is,
it's in a different movie. But
I got cultural cringe from an American movie thanks to Mendo.
Honestly, no joke. Killing Them Softly is one of the best movies of the 21st century.
You're gonna start a fist fight in the studio on this movie.
And
that could be a.
No, I'm no joke.
It's really well shot. It's really well shot.
I loved it. Yeah. I think it's genius, and I can't wait for Andrew Dominik's next movie, Blonde.
Right. Yeah, that Marilyn Monroe film. Yeah.
But my favorite film is I'm a simple man. It's Interstellar.
Yeah, I love that film.
I know for some, it's like some people hate it. They're like, oh, it's too arty. They don't understand it. It's too flashy, whatever.
Oh man.
Some of our friends don't like it because there's that scene where Matthew McConaughey cries when he sees that what he's missing. Through the trip. And our friend Alan, friend of the show, he hates it because he's like, why is he crying? I think maybe it makes him uncomfortable or something.
Alan's
but I'm like,
going to hell, but it's.
I'll tell you, no, but seriously, I'm like, we're talking about masculinity before, and I think that the display of the vulnerability that Matthew McConaughey shows, it made some people uncomfortable, and I was surprised because I always said it, James, we talk about movies as art.
Yeah.
For me personally, I'm not a religious man, but when I saw Interstellar for the first time at Hoyt's when it aired, it was literally almost like a religious experience.
I saw it at IMAX the first time, and it was
that's lucky. Yeah, we went when it came back.
My mind exploded.
When the gothic kind of organs or whatever come in, I was sitting there like the hand of God reached into me. I was like, oh my God.
I think it's his best film. To be honest,
I mean, me too. But there's so many good ones. That's a difficult conversation.
It's weird because
Tenet,
and Dunkirk.
I didn't like Tenet.
No, neither did I. I was being sarcastic.
Tenet was good.
I kind of love Tenet because of how just weird it is. In like, why did he decide to do that?
I respect the fact that he blew up a plane.
Instead of doing CG.
One of the many reasons I love him is because he's like the only mainstream action director who's just doing things practically. He's the only guy who can be like, I'm going to blow up a real plane.
Our in-joke is we can't wait for him to drop a real nuke in the next movie.
Well, in Oppenheimer, like, the world's going to end anyway, so might as well do it for the art. Yeah. But it's weird because a lot of people's complaints about Nolan's movies is they're too cold and they're not
they're really
emotional
quiet.
enough. Yeah, but like Interstellar specifically, there are bits in that movie that, excuse me, there are bits in that movie where I was like close to tears. Like,
I was in tears
actually
watching the
yeah.
movie. Yeah.
I was talking about how Alan he hates it because Matthew McConaughey cries when he sees what he's missing out on, and we're talking about the vulnerability aspect. That maybe that's what makes people uncomfortable. They're not used to seeing men cry on screen, but like when men cry on screen, right? It's usually because they're angry or whatever. But I'm like, when you see a man who's sad because he's missing out on
that my son?
but you know what I mean. Like it's like when it comes from a place of like a sad vulnerability place.
We talked about it with Lord of the Rings, how a lot of people find the Sam and Frodo scenes uncomfortable because they're...
a lot of people read that homoeroticism into it.
But also, and they have a very specific idea of like how a movie action adventure like characters should, men should act. Like even Aragorn in like is kind of like a really sensitive.
He is, especially even
he's a
movie.
Badass and he kills orcs and stuff.
But he'll also hold someone's hand when they're dying. He'll, you know what I mean? Like he'll sing a song to the boys. Like you know what I mean?
It's amazing that they made those 3 films though. And then what's your opinion on The Hobbit?
No good.
Let's not talk about
the Lord of the Rings is so amazing, and the Hobbit is so terrible.
We watched a while ago now, last summer. When did we rewatch The Lord of the Rings?
Oh, last year.
When the 4Ks
was it earlier this year?
We rewatched them on our home projector with the 4Ks, and honestly, I was looking forward to it. Like I was at work one day.
We did one a week.
I was at work on the weekend, and I'm like, when I get to go home, I get to watch like Return of the King, and they still hold up. It's just such a special trilogy.
They're brilliant.
Peter Jackson was saying he wishes he could forget them so he could like appreciate it as a film viewer. You know,
that makes sense. Yeah, but it's just.
Yeah, there's no toxic masculinity in Lord of the Rings. I mean, there is, but they're the villains.
And it's something we always talk about on the show. I'm sure if you said you listened to a few episodes and you probably heard us. It's like they don't make movies like that anymore, where it's just like, it's a big action adventure movie with crazy magical stuff going on, but there's like a story and characters and a kind of quietness and contemplativeness to it. But also, like, the action and crazy stuff is all really well done. Most of it, a lot of practical elements.
Yeah.
I think he's still a normal bloke at that stage. And I think that one thing that the industry may do to people is that as you become into the fold, you then have to move into the same position that other people... So, you get your teeth done, you get your tummy tuck, all these things happen, and he transforms into... He
went from the Peter Jackson who made those weird horror movies
a Hobbit,
to the biggest director in the world.
Yeah.
And then we can see by the time you get to The Hobbit, it's like,
But he's not allowed to go to the Oscars unless he's had his teeth done, He's not allowed to... So all of these things happen to him, I think, that makes him... Like, he has to lose weight. He has to do,
there's an expectation he appears a certain way,
Whereas Braindead's like a masterpiece.
And his films after Lord of the Rings were never as good as the pre-Lord of the Rings. A lot of filmmakers are like that, I think.
I think that's... Tenet?
It's hard for anybody to reach the heights of Lord of the Rings. Let's be honest. The man captured lightning in a bottle.
Yeah.
Well, what did you think of Get Back on Disney Plus? Did you watch the Beatles doco he did?
Oh yeah, no, that I did actually think it was amazing.
That was good. That was a bit of a return to form in terms of like long form.
That was like a passion project for him as well.
Yeah, and there was something about his eye was back, like his ability to judge.
Because I thought that for him was like a real kind of return to form of like, I'm going to do something that I want to do. Yeah. It's going to be long form. I'm going to have no it was art. It's not 4 60-minute episodes. Yeah. It's like, 3 or 4 episodes and they're all like 2.5 hours, 3 hours long. Yeah. And like it's something you can sit and just get involved in, just veg out watching it all day.
It was brilliant. It was really brilliant.
So at least he still got it. He knows where he's got it.
It's the trade-off of like when you make something like Lord of the Rings, you get a blank check to do whatever you want, but that can then lead to kind of boring studio films. But then by this point in his career, I think he's made enough.
Because I think
bank where he's
I do think Get Back's interesting because a lot of people don't like it. I think it's boring.
Oh.
Yeah,
Well,
I've seen a lot of people think it's kind of just like dry and boring.
How much do young people like the Beatles anyway?
Exactly,
the Beatles are eternal.
It's for but it's for a specific.
It's
audience.
for a specific audience,
and also it's not a documentary in the traditional sense. It's like archive footage, restored archive footage. It's not told in a story. It kind of is, but you know what I mean?
Yeah. Like, he definitely has an angle.
That's what makes it interesting.
Yeah.
What I loved about it was just these 4 guys who tradesmen, you know, they come in and they're doing their thing and they're all, you know, Paul doing Get Back just over and over this long period of time.
Yeah, the magic is when they're just playing on the instruments, coming up with the songs, and you see it in real time.
Yeah. That's an interesting point too, is like, because you think of the Beatles and you're like, oh, they're so big and famous and they must be such great musicians that they can just go in the studio and they just record yesterday in one take. But it's just like, no, they're just guys who like go back and forth. Oh, is this a good line? Should we cut this out? How's this riff? And it takes hours and days and months, and they fight and all this stuff. And it's an interesting look into the process of even the most famous, well-accomplished artist still has to work and practice.
And having their cups of tea and their toast. And, you know, all that stuff was great.
It's interesting because, you know, we review films all the time and we're like, oh, it's easy. They could have just done this. And it's like, you can attest making your own film. It's like, no, it's never easy. Even when you have $100 million, it's like there's so much that goes on to make
everyday challenges
one
that you have to fix.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just trying to think up a good story, but like, you know, often really great things come about because of shortages. So like, you know, because you can't do something or you're not allowed to do something, then you do something else. And it ends up being great because you didn't need the helicopter.
It's creative problem solving.
I mean, we always use that line of thinking when it comes to stuff like the overuse of CG.
Yeah.
I'm like, if you don't have the CG, what are you going to do?
We were complaining, or I was complaining the other day. I'm like, I miss when movies, even big budget, polished Hollywood films, were just a little bit scrappy. You know, there was a couple of out of focus shots. Actors' hair wasn't always perfect.
Yeah.
And now everything's just too perfect. It's too digital. It's too CGI. The actors have, you know, beauty filters on.
Did you watch the Batman at all?
Yes, we did.
What was your feelings on that?
It was okay.
We thought it was okay. I think the more time that went on, the less I personally liked it. But I did appreciate it that I was like, oh, Warner Brothers let this guy make a 3-hour kind of weird, dark movie.
A bit
if you
slower.
cut the last hour off, it's probably
it's an hour too long.
Yeah,
definitely.
The opening shot is fantastic. I love the opening shot of that film. All the Halloween stuff that's going on.
Yeah.
Awesome. We were watching the Black Phone a while ago for the show, and one of the things that made James furious, bringing it back to the CG, the CG was they CG'd a kid throwing a ball, and they CG'd someone throwing a rope. So when he's
fishing a rope up a carpet or something.
It's entirely
he throws a rope over a vent so he can
get
like
to a
hook
window.
it, so he can like pull the vent down.
And they did it in CG.
They CG'd the rope so it's this rubbery looking. James is like, why wouldn't you just use a real rope?
I was like fuming.
Just find some string.
Right. Wow.
It's just
that's what the overuse of CG and like everyday things that like if you're someone with a limited budget, well, you're just going to use a rope because
sometimes those kinds of shots come about because they didn't shoot it, and it's just like
that's what I thought.
Let's just go and send it to someone in India and they can do the CG.
That's what I was questioning. I'm like, did they forget to shoot it that day?
Yeah.
Did they have to? I'm like, but you all these Hollywood films have inbuilt reshoot dates.
Yeah.
All of them, even the biggest budget film has a few days set aside to go. Like we assemble all the footage and then go, oh, we're missing this little insert here. We'll go and shoot it. I'm like, are you telling me you couldn't throw a rope at a vent? It's like it was just so frustrating.
I mean, I don't think at the end of the day, I don't think they worry too much about throwing money away, man. They just shelved an $80 million superhero movie.
Phenomenal.
Yeah. $90 million.
And the Flash is still going to get made.
So will we never
crime.
see Batgirl?
No, because legally, if it ever got released in any capacity, they don't get the tax write-off.
Right.
And that's why they cancelled it, so they could get $10 million tax write-off or something
I don't know
stupid
if you listen to the last... one of the last shows we did, we talk about what's going on with HBO.
Yeah, I didn't quite get there yet. But...
and basically what's happening is they got a new manager, a new CEO there, and they don't want to pay... So on all the shows that aired on broadcast TV, they still have to pay royalties through streaming.
Yeah.
They don't want to.
No.
So they're just getting rid of everything.
Yeah.
So like over 200 at this point, classic episodes of Sesame Street just got deleted because they don't want to pay royalties. And it's the same kind of thing. Tax write-offs, royalty checks.
Well, I literally was talking to a producer about this in terms of contracting. So for me to sell my film to a streamer, I will still get those deals. But if they originate the project, everyone just gets paid their wage and
Yeah.
See you later.
That's what I've always heard. That it's like Netflix doesn't do residuals, doesn't do stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I was surprised to hear, HBO was cancelling all these things because they didn't want to pay people. But I guess it's if the product has already been established and they're just hosting it on their platform, then they still have to.
Yeah. It's weird because when, I don't know what contracts were made or signed or whatever happened when they bought the show off PBS, or whatever happened.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's probably something a little bit dodgy for them just to be like, no, you can't watch it anymore. See you later.
It's just
it's a crime because it was meant to be an educational show for children who wouldn't necessarily get that kind of stuff elsewhere. Like it was Jim Henson. Yeah, he made it as an educational platform, and so it's kind of it's real dirty that they would just like remove it from history like that. Or, I mean, accessibility, I should say.
It's I don't know. It's one of those things where whoever has the most lawyers wins.
Yeah. Which is always Disney.
It's the same thing we talked about with Disney, and they were just like, what contracts? We didn't buy your contracts.
Yeah, exactly.
And all the poor Star Wars authors who aren't getting paid anymore just because Disney's decided that since it's was it New Year, New Me? Yeah. So they don't have to pay those contracts.
Yeah. But it's like we were just talking about with the art versus commerce thing, where it's gone full to the commerce side. They're just penny pinching. They don't actually care, which is why like I appreciated what you did with your film, and I appreciate certain indie studios and like even YouTube filmmakers who are just like, we make this stuff because we want to, not because it's a brand, not because it'll make the CEO get a bigger bonus at the end of the year. And that's what's I think missing from a lot of.
Can you get an audience to go and see those films is the difficult thing though.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Especially in a COVID/post-COVID environment.
I feel like it'd be easier in like yesteryear when there was more cinemas, but the cinemas were less corporate.
Yeah.
So it's like now you've got Village, you've got Hoyts, you've got
Yeah, there's not much.
If there was a place like the Astor, for example, or the Nova in like every suburb, I feel like you'd be able to go to a cinema and be like, that's like owned and run by like the person who owns the building.
We were talking about Kevin Smith before. He recently just bought his own personal movie cinema so he could show his movie.
So I feel like indie filmmakers would have a lot more success in yesteryear, or they did, because they could approach a cinema and be like, "Hey, I've got this film. How'd you feel if we sold a few seats or whatever?" And you could have your own thing going.
I'd love to live in LA just for the fact that there are probably a lot of those cinemas you can just go to, and Tarantino has the New Beverly, and it's just like that's still a thing, at least in that city. Whereas here, it's like not.
We used to talk about it all the time. The idea that we're kind of unlucky in Australia because when we don't really get that many indie films, but when we do, it'll be one showing at the Nova, maybe the Astor might get something once, and then you have to wait another 6 months for it to show again. We were very lucky that we got to see Mother and
Lady Bird
at the Hoyts at random one session screening. We were like, wow, like that doesn't happen every day.
Yeah, we do appreciate when they get a proper release. And they're not a superhero movie.
Well, I tried to watch a film on Sunday in the city, and there was like I wanted to see the Jordan Peele film, and it wasn't screening until 6:30 at night or something. So
I think there was very few screenings.
We've talked about this before a lot, and unfortunately, I think the problem is a lot of the time when the cinemas get like a big Marvel movie, there's that stipulation: you have to play it on X amount of screens for X amount of showings. and that just sort of kills all the other types of movies that could be showing.
They're not. They're not going to show a movie that's not a big superhero movie or a kids animated movie because one, they got the contract of like you have to play it this many times on this many screen, and two, it's like, well, the other movie is not going to make as much money, so why would we waste screen space?
Well, we've noted locally, I guess with our area's demographics, Bollywood is massive here.
Very big.
In our
it's a
local
big money
cinemas.
maker.
And look, it saved the cinema through COVID. I think it's a great thing.
I used to be a projectionist back in the day, in the 90s, and
awesome.
Every Friday night, the cinema that I worked at used to show Indian films. Alternate Indian films with Pakistani films the next Friday. And they were the biggest nights we had. Because they have a culture of watching cinema and enjoying cinema and interacting with the screen. And
Bollywood's so much bigger than Hollywood, isn't it? It's huge.
Yeah, it's massive.
Yeah. Like big budget movies.
Yeah. Well, since you brought it up, can we talk about the projectioning?
Yeah,
projectioning.
The projecting.
When I was in uni, I was like early 2010s, and that's when the whole film versus digital debate was happening, and there was the point of like all the film projectors were being replaced with digital projectors, and I'm someone who's like, I don't really care if it's film or digital. All my favorite movies are mostly film movies. I love practical effects. I like old school filmmaking. But at the end of the day, if you make a good movie, like your movie, it doesn't matter if it's shot on film or not. And the same with projecting. It's like, well, all the best projected films I've seen have been film. But if that doesn't mean you can't have a good digital projection. I don't know. Do you have, as someone who worked in the projection booth, do you have an affinity for old film? Or?
Yeah, absolutely, because the sounds of it, but you don't have the problems that, you put the anamorphic lens on the widescreen film, or
the stress of being a projectionist is probably a bit different.
I've had a film where I had to cut it after it went through the gate, so the film was just falling on the floor, and I had to pull it up and make it up. And so things like that were not fun, but there's something, because the film plane moves, inside the projector, and so focus happens, light flicker happens, bulbs get older, they get newer. That's why I asked about the Batman, because with the Batman they shot it on digital, but then they printed it out to film, and then rescanned it back in so that it had that element of movement and diffusion and stuff. And so they were trying to get that.
Well, that's interesting as well, because most digital films are trying to replicate a filmic look, and that makes sense because people are used to that, and to most of the time it quote unquote looks better, whatever that means. But I think there was a time where there were a couple of filmmakers like Michael Mann with Collateral, where I was just like, Tom Cruise. Digital movie is going to look like digital, and it's going to look awesome.
It was I loved that film.
We love Tom Cruise in this one.
I think when you look at
Callum and Nathan have a bit of a thing for Tom Cruise.
He's getting there, don't worry.
My wife is a huge fan of Tom Cruise.
Everyone
why she married me. If you look at like something like Rocky, which was late 70s, early 80s, and it looks, most of the things that you see, the digital projections of it doesn't look great. And anything that's kind of shot on, when I really notice is when I look at something that's shot on 16mm, because before 16mm used to be, okay, you don't have the big budget, shoot on 16mm, it'll be amazing, and it was so much better. But now it is a really different look. I think everything's really clean now.
Very clinical looking.
Netflix stuff, it's just like,
it's all very samey.
Yeah, and.
But did you see that new Ty West film?
X.
That was shot on film, and it looks grainy and
was it? I can't remember. Did we? Because I remember we looked it up and go, was it shot? And
that was part
I'll
of
have to look.
I'm pretty sure that was part of the selling point, was he shot it old school, and because it's a set in the 70s, so he wanted to shoot it like they would in the 70s.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that was the selling point.
Licorice Pizza was film, was it? I think.
Yeah,
I still haven't seen that.
P.T. Anderson does all this stuff.
Is that good?
It was
really
amazing.
Liked it. It's yeah.
Oh no, you go ahead.
Well, I don't think it's like it doesn't
not
have
his
the
best
story of like the master or
Yeah.
There Will Be Blood, but it's just really fun. I think.
Yeah.
It's also Paul Thomas Anderson's one of my favorite filmmakers because his films feel like they still feel new and fresh, but they kind of have that old school Hollywood feel to them.
Yeah.
Like it feels like watching an old 80s, 70s, 80s Scorsese movie, but you're watching a 2022 movie. And it doesn't have that manufactured, clean look that all movies have now.
Yeah. I mean, the interesting thing, you guys were talking about CG a lot. Did you see The Irishman?
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand why they didn't go cast someone younger to play younger.
That makes me laugh because you've got people on the internet doing touch-ups.
Yeah.
And they look so much better.
Yeah, the deep
It's like, I did this in 10 minutes.
The guy who, the guy who fixed Luke Skywalker in...
Casting Sebastian Stan.
Right. No. In
The Mandalorian.
Mandalorian, when Luke Skywalker comes and he's got that weird deep fake face. And then that guy on YouTube, on his home computer, made an even better version. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure then they then hired that same guy to do
good on him.
The Boba Fett Luke Skywalker. I don't know. I gave up on all these shows. So
I haven't seen.
But it's just like that's the thing is like we watch these big budget shows and movies and we're like, oh, that looks like crap. Some guy on his home computer can do a better job, and oftentimes they do, and that's why I think a lot of we complain a lot about Hollywood movies is like with your film, it's like we're at a point now technologically where people can do things more themselves. And oftentimes do them better. And you can spend $1 gajillion on your movie, but if you don't have any talent or you don't have a vision, or if there's too many cooks in the kitchen,
I mean, that's what it comes down to.
Stuff.
Well, a lot of CG, it's like you've got 50 people working on a movie, and they have like
it's a rush job.
It's a rush job. They have a certain amount of time to get it finished, and as in too many cooks in the kitchen.
I'm hoping that we'll get to see lots of movies like One Punch because we're entering a period now where, and pardon that dumb uni speak, but we get to see the democratization of filmmaking where the tools are available to everyone pretty much. You might have to get a few add-ons for your equipment or whatever, but like if we wanted to, we could write a script and go shoot a film.
We
could shoot an entire movie about us recording a podcast in the radio station.
Like there's a term when you're making a documentary, right? Is there's no chance you're going to make a documentary unless you've got privileged access. You need to be able to be in the room with those people and ask them the question, or actually have a relationship. There's no point going, I want to do a film about Tom Cruise. Good luck getting in touch with him.
Just follow him around.
You guys have a radio station, you as your resource, that you can do. You can get a couple of actors. You can make a complete thing in a radio station. And that's a film, like a horror film or whatever genre you want to do. And I would say go for it because, and if you every time you go, oh, this looks shit, you just say to yourself, don't fucking worry about it, just shoot it, keep going, shoot the next shot, do it again, and then at the end of the thing, you've got a film first of all, and then the second thing is you can look back on it and go, my gut told me that was shit at the time. Now I know what it was that made it shit, and I won't do it again. And that can't be. You can't sit and watch a YouTube video or in a film school and learn that. You've got to do it. That's
what we were talking off air about how when I did go to film school, I didn't enjoy it, and it kind of ruined my passion for being a filmmaker. And we were talking about writing and how I have like crippling writer's block, if you can even call it that. And it's like, you just need to just do it. And it's easier said than done, but I think you proved it. It's just like, if you wait around for permission, no one's going to give you permission. No one's going to give you money. No one's going to give you a big name actor. You might as well just go out and do what you can.
You just got to go and make stuff up.
But if you got writer's block, you can get you can get the two actors. Like, actors are this wonderful resource. They'll do anything for you.
Employ the fielder method.
Yeah, including the fielder method. But they will, because they just want to be
involved.
Actors want to be. No, they want to be loved. Like they're deeply.
But it's like the creative process.
But they will do. If you ask them within reason, they'll do these amazing things for you. And if you use them as that resource to kind of, like, even just ask them, hey, I've got this scene here. It doesn't feel like it's working. What could we do to make it more dramatic?
Yeah.
Then they can be the people that bring that part that you're struggling with, and then you can just make the decision. Because I really think being a director is about making decisions. You know, like the writer part sets things up, but the director's about, that's good.
Yeah.
No, here. And if you can free yourself up to do that, I think you'll become a much better filmmaker, and you'll probably what was it about film school that you really didn't like? Or
I think
capitalism.
Yeah,
I'm an anarchist in a
yeah.
But it's like because I hated primary school and I hated high school.
Yeah.
And then I got to uni. I'm like, this is it. It's going to be the college dream, you know.
Get to finally study what you love.
Yeah, and it's like, I love movies. This is all I want to do. And you get to class and it's like, oh, this is just school.
They beat it out of
like
you.
you kind of sit at a desk and you have to take notes. And it was 90% theory.
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh, and here's a camera and make a film in 2 weeks and there you go. And I'm like, hang on. We should have done that at the start of the semester.
It's a disgrace at film schools. Yeah.
I think most people are like that.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people force themselves to learn or memorize, but they're not really taking in any knowledge. I'm the first one. I'm not unintelligent, but I was bad at school because I learned by doing.
Yeah.
And they can cram all the theory they want, and I'm not going to retain it. I need to do something to learn.
I remember complaining about this to a teacher of mine in school and being like, I'm not learning anything. I'm just copying down what you've written on the whiteboard. I'm good, and then during the test, I'm good at memorizing it, cramming the day before, write it all down on the test, and then forgetting about it. I'm not actually learning.
See, I had a very positive experience because once I got the compulsory modules out of the way, which was all the stuff you don't want to do. But when you get into your electives, it's all stuff that you're interested in. Yeah. So all of my work was portfolio based. Yeah. So they said to me, okay, we're going to show you some examples here's a technical writing or here's a creative piece, whatever. We're going to show you how it should be done, some pointers to keep in mind. Go write a 2,000 word piece or whatever, and that was most of my work. So most of my work was doing stuff that I loved and getting feedback from it. So you would think that they would do the same with filmmaking, but I suppose it's a bit expensive to have students continually making film and getting the feedback loop.
It's really interesting, the expense. One of my favourite subjects that I used to teach, I used to run a film school. I ran the film department at a place called SAE. Because I'm not there anymore. But when I was there, I ran this course, and I did this kind of crazy thing where the very first class you came in and did, which was the cinematography class, I made them shoot film. And so you came in and you shot film, and you had the pressure of, I don't know what this is going to look like.
Yeah.
Yes, I've read my light meter. That's my f-stop. I'm going to film it. I can only see it through the viewfinder when I'm filming it. I have to make a call on that. There's no hair in the gate. We're moving on. And then in a week's time, you get the footage back. The students had to sit there and really think about what they wanted to film because they only had one role per production.
Yeah.
Those students, I did it for 2 trimesters, I think, before I left. Those students are some of the best filmmakers we put through that course because...
Yeah, it's something I've always heard even about still photography of like if you only have a certain amount of shots in your roll, you're more selective, and so your eye gets trained better. Because if you got digital, you just hold down the clicker and you take a million photos.
Stakes are lower.
Yeah, and then at the end of the day, you delete the bad ones. But it's like if you're more selective, if you have to be more selective because of the constraints of the technology, then later when you're shooting on digital and you have more freedom, you still have in your mind of like, well, we don't need to shoot a million takes.
And you have to, by necessity, you have to choose what you really want to be shooting. So if you have unlimited shoots, you're just like, oh yeah, done. You take, like you said, like a million photos. But if you've only got 10, you have to really look and see what are you feeling like you want to shoot.
That's actually something we forgot to ask you with your film is how many takes did you generally do, especially because you were out in the world and you couldn't really hang around for too long?
Not a lot, and that was really challenging at times. Probably maximum of like 8 to 10.
Okay.
Sometimes 2, sometimes 3.
Yeah. I guess when you're in the house, you can do as many as you want. But if you're out on the street, it's like, all right,
but
we got to get
this. In the house, if we felt we'd got it, you sort of just said, it's there.
How many takes did you have to do on the train? All right, because if you're setting it from because if you're setting it from a certain distance to a certain point, you don't want to ride the train line too far because then people will be like, hey, this is no longer Coburg, we're at Broadmeadow.
This is the lesson: is don't put hard technical scenes on the first day. So the first day we shot the car travel into the city, and then we shot the train, and shooting on the train I thought would be easy, and it was really hard because of that issue. And we pretty much shot it. So we caught the train at Coburg, went all the way out to the end of the line, and then came back. And we filmed it coming back, and then we get off at Coburg, catch the next train back out, come back. So we did probably only twice. And in that time, so there's a shot that takes them all over to there. And then really what actually happened was I kind of went a little bit crazy. And I just grabbed the camera and I just went, okay, because I had a shot list and a plan, but I just was really struggling. And so I just said, okay, we're doing this, we're doing this, we're doing this, we're doing this, we're doing this. And just did it. And it was like at the end of that, I'm like, geez, I've really fucked that up. It worked out okay, but it wasn't.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the things where people probably aren't going to notice anyway.
No, and that's the thing. And because all the actors knew who they were, if anything was changing or happening, they could recover. There's some focus issues. There's some lighting issues and stuff. That was a hard scene to grade because the windows are really
traveling
bright.
with movement and
you have to
notice anything.
Well, I think that's the thing is if you just put that part of your mind away, like when we used to shoot on film, if something went totally white because it's outside a window and it's bright, that was actually okay. Sometimes you had to do that. But there's this thing now with high def that you have to see everything and everything has to be in the correct exposure range. And it's not true.
It's that perfection that we were talking about where it's just like, it's this like really polished kind of, everything's too perfect. And it's like, no, it's okay if,
if you walk into a dark room, it's into a bright room, it's bright, and then your eye shuts down. So I actually really treated the phone like 16mm film. So I did lots of things like always backlight in the sun. So use the sun as a backlight so that you've got your rim light, and just fill in the shadows. And that's the way we used to shoot film. 16mm film TV was when you're moving fast, you just kind of know how to. That's going to be okay. Yeah, it's going to go white, but that's fine because this is where the story's happening over here. I don't think it's too bad.
No, it turned out well. Yeah, it's like it's learning by doing. Like we were talking about how it's like if like me, you're doing theory all the time, then when you get the camera in your hands, like, well, what do I do with this? Yeah. It's like the only way you're going to learn is go out and kind of.
I'd say most artists learn by doing anyway, because art is inherently you're doing things. It's not not like with maths and science, it's like it's mostly thinking, it's all mental. But when you're creating stuff, most of the time it has to do with your hands anyway. So that's not a good, like, theories is not a good replacement for actual craft, in my opinion. I don't know anything.
I mean, there's always an important element of theory, but I don't think it's as important if you want to actually make stuff.
I think theory is meant to be the thing that ignites your interest. It's meant to be the thing of you read something and you go, oh, that's crazy, interesting.
That's one thing I found strange about, going to uni for film is like I got there and they were like trying to teach us about movies. I'm like, no, that's why I'm here. I already love movies. I've seen them all. I've already done the theory. I've already done the homework. I'm here so you can help me to actually make them.
You would have been a great student to have, but I mean, like the number of students I go, who's seen The Godfather? And like one student puts their hand up.
That's another thing that surprised me is like, I wanted nothing more in the world than to be a filmmaker and to go to film school. And I get to film school, and there are all these other people there who like hadn't seen all like any classic movies.
They were there because it seemed like it was a good idea. It seemed fun.
And I was just like, well, I don't want to be the gatekeeper who's like, you're not a real movie fan, you shouldn't be here. But I was kind of scratching my head, being like, well, why are you wasting here? Your time? It's like I fought really hard to get here, and now I'm here, and it's like, oh, this dickhead has never seen any movie ever, saw Transformers and was like, I'm going to do that now. Callum's offended.
Well, I mean, the thing I would say is, I was 44 when I made my first feature film, so you've still got plenty of time.
Yeah,
if you want to pursue that, there's no.
I think. I also don't want to mislead any listeners. Like, you've been in the industry for 20 years.
Yeah, we're nobodies.
Yeah, so it's just
you drove Vin Diesel around. Don't undersell yourself.
Yeah, but I'll probably never work again. So,
yeah, I can't make a film until I drive around Vin Diesel.
Oh, is that the name of the episode? Vin
Driving
Diesel's
Vin
chauffeur?
Diesel.
Yeah.
Driving Vin Diesel.
Driving Miss Diesel.
Look, that was my film school. I got to work for 3 years after I graduated. After I'd worked on Pitch Black, I got to work as a camera assistant on a very bad TV series called The Lost World, which is on Amazon Prime.
Oh, we're gonna have to watch that.
Canadian Australian co-production where it's an Arthur Conan Doyle story.
Okay, so it is the dinosaur thing.
Into three seasons I worked on that for. And in between each series, we did 4 movies of the week where we shot a film in 4 weeks.
Wow.
So we do a season of The Lost World, which was all in the jungle and tree houses and shit. And then we would do these 4 movies. So we did like a spy movie, a virtual reality Truman Show kind of movie, a gargoyle movie. And there was another one in there. I can't remember what it was. Like a Pleasantville kind of movie.
That sounds awesome.
Are these available anywhere?
No, I was like a Predator movie. Sorry, yeah. Look, they probably are. I don't know, somewhere.
Because that's all we're going to review.
And then things like Counter-Strike, which was a movie where the US president is on an ocean light, is under siege light, right?
Yeah.
And these movies just went. We never saw them. They're terrible.
Or just like made for TV.
They might be on Prime. They might be on Prime.
Okay, cool.
You'll find a lot of that stuff's on Prime, like the classic Deathstalker.
Yeah, there is
is
a lot of
available.
stuff.
Have you seen Deathstalker?
I haven't. No.
That's on Amazon Prime.
Let me just put that on my list.
No, I'm actually really serious. It's actually a funny, interesting film.
Yeah.
That's going to have to make a comeback because we reviewed that so many years ago back on the old show. And if there are any long-time listeners, they know what we're talking about. But a lot of the listeners who listen to Tuesday Review probably have no idea what that reference refers to. So that's going to have to make a Tuesday Review comeback.
Sorry, I'm sorry, but since Darcy's never seen it, we have to do a quick explanation. So it was this fantasy.
It's like those old cheesy B movie, like sword and sorcery fantasy movies. Yeah. After Conan the Barbarian came out, every cheap like Roger Corman-esque studio was like, let's turn these out.
Cokefield,
but even
South
like lower,
American,
like they kept getting lower budget.
They were making a series called Beastmaster next.
Yeah, I've got that on Blu-ray.
So Beastmaster was happening in this studio, and we're making a Lost World in this studio.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
And I worked. One of the greatest experiences on set I ever had was I did a couple of days on Beastmaster as a loader. And we were shooting second unit, and we were shooting the tigers, these white tigers that he had.
Wow.
Yep.
And they had the Disney World people wrangling the tigers with these bottles of warm milk because they were still like kittens, but massive. And we had to be in this massive cage and poke the lens out.
See,
and then
this is what I miss about movies. Is when things were kind of dangerous.
Pull
and
the
it's
tiger out. And,
now that would have been semi-CGI tiger, which technically is better and safer for everyone involved, but doesn't look good.
But that Joe vs. Carol on Stan is a show they made in Australia. Every single... I write for the Australian Cinematographer magazine, and I did an article on it, and every single animal in that film is a dog with a fluorescent jacket on.
Oh,
and they're like Great Danes or Greyhounds, and they get them to move. So all the tigers are these dogs moving, and then they just put the CGI animal over the top.
Yeah, that's interesting.
It's pretty sad in a way.
Yeah,
it's great.
Look at Star Trek. They were using dogs before it was cool.
Yeah.
Dogs with the little unicorn horn. But it's something we talk about a lot. It's just like I understand. Like there's an ethical question of animal mistreating animals. There's also a safety question in terms of the actors. But at the end of the day, the reason I love old movies is because it's like, oh, they actually did that. That's actually a real tiger. That's actually a real bear. Now it's like, oh, that's just CGI. Whatever. It looks like crap.
They go into that a lot in Nope.
Nope actually has that element as well.
Yeah. Back to Deathstalker.
So anyway, Deathstalker, one of the great all-time.
That was a joke, but honestly, go watch it. It's hilarious.
Okay.
Yeah, they're hilarious.
It has Star Wars ripoff. Don't forget it. It has the Force in it.
Right. Wow.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there's all sorts of cheesy
and it has
magic.
it has Muppets and it's, I should say, it's also very sexist.
We will. Yeah, it's a product of the early '80s.
There's a lot. I'm sure there was lots of cocaine on set.
That was
that way.
So cocaine time. Yeah.
We found out there was a sequel. So we get together, we watch the sequel, thinking it's going to be the same as the original, like this kind of trashy whatever. It was like a Mel Brooks rip-off film.
Unironically, no, Mel Brooks comedy. Like, it's a classic.
Yeah, it was like a parody of the first movie.
And so the opening line,
genius,
amazing.
Right.
He goes, it's like an Indiana Jones scene where a new Deathstalker, played by a thinner, more acrobatic guy, because the original was supposed to be rip-off of like Hercules.
Big cone,
right.
Yeah, it's a big Arnold
Anyway,
Schwarzenegger.
he steals some treasure from a sorceress, or whatever, and she yells at the camera. She goes, "I'll have my revenge." And Deathstalker 2, and then the credits come up because the name of the film is Deathstalker 2. Right. I was like, yes.
For listeners at home, Darcy just rolled his eyes.
Yeah.
Well, yes.
You have to watch it though, because we were expecting a serious film.
I will watch it.
Oh no, you don't have.
If you like cheese, we love cheese in this studio.
Yeah.
So
I'll check out the Lost World series 1 through 3.
We will definitely. Look, I think we are probably running out of time.
Yeah.
Time to let Darcy go.
Time to let. Yeah, we'll release our captive.
Thanks, guys. It's an absolute pleasure talking to you.
No, it was an honor, and we really appreciate it.
Once again, One Punch is coming to cinemas. We'll have all the details on our socials. It was a pleasure having such a special guest on the show. Thank you for coming, Darcy.
Very rare.
Warm those picnic bars.
Yes, we got some Dr. Fart props.
You can recreate Dr. Fart.
Yeah, they're not bribes, but
we didn't get paid for this glowing review, but
it is cancer.
We did get.
We have to eat the poop. That's right.
This is the only cure.
You can catch the Tuesday Review on Anchor, Spotify, iTunes, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Please like and share the Tuesday Review Facebook, the Twitter, the Instagram. We'll be back next week. Or did you have anything
Darcy,
to plug?
what was your social media again?
Danger Darce, and One Punch feature film on Facebook.
Yeah, and Demand Film.
And Demand Films
is where you can find the show times.
So Google Demand Films, and yes.
Yeah. Please watch and support indie films everywhere. Yeah. Specifically One Punch and other Australian media.
Yeah.
Doesn't get enough love, unfortunately, even in our own country.
Thanks for listening, everybody. We're back next week. Adios, cousins.